Hi, this is Miss Goodale, and today I'm going to share some basics about positive and negative numbers. Your lesson starts out talking about some vocabulary. We have the words integers and opposites. And you'll notice that the definition of integers also includes opposites. So I'm going to start with the definition for opposites. In the book, your definition for opposites are numbers that are the same distance away from zero on a number line. Actually, I'm not going to write all that up. Maybe I will. So they are the same distance from zero on a number line. And for instance, I'm going to show you a number line here. And here's 0. Okay, so I know the positive numbers, you guys have worked with those. The opposites are just the opposite distance from 0. So 1 is one space away from 0. The opposite of 1 is the other direction, and it's also one space away from 0, so it is -1. Two is 2 spaces away from 0. And if I go the opposite direction 2 spaces away, I get to -2. 3 is 3 spaces away. The opposite is -3. So I can continue filling this out. They just go backwards from positive numbers. So you'll find that if you just remember how things work with positive numbers, the negative numbers usually do about the opposite. So integers are actually in the book defined as the set of whole numbers and their opposites. So for instance, if I had 1 and -1, and notice whenever I do these, the positive numbers, I don't always write the positive sign in front of them. Sometimes you can, but you don't need them. 2 and -2, 3 and -3, 4 and -4, and so on. Okay, so those are all integers. One of the things that I want to point out on a number line, as you go to the right, the numbers get larger. As you go to the left, the numbers get smaller. So when I'm working with positive numbers, I know that 2 is bigger than 1. Well, it's to the right. If I'm working with negative numbers, I have -2 and -1. Well, if I look at it, interestingly enough, it's the opposite direction. So actually, -2 is smaller than -1. So I'm going to go ahead and write that with symbols. Okay, so 1 is less than 2. -1 is greater than -2. Okay, so they do the opposite when you have the opposite numbers. Positives are always bigger than negatives. So if you had +1 and -2, +1 is going to be bigger than -2. Other concepts that they talk about in the book are what does it mean if a team loses 15 yards? If a team loses 15 yards, that would mean they'd have negative 15. What would 0 mean in that case? That would mean that they didn't lose or gain yards. Okay. Then for temperature, if I had a temperature of 12 degrees below 0, so I'm going to abbreviate that as temp 12 below 0, my integer is negative 12. And what does 0 mean? So what does 0 mean? 0 means a temperature of 0. Okay, in most cases, 0 will mean no change, but in this case, 0 is actually the temperature of 0. In golf, if I had a score of 5 below par, the integer would be negative 5. And what does 0 mean on this case? Well, that would be par. Okay, in golf, par just means that you broke even or scored 0. Another example is if I go to the bank and I make a withdrawal. If I withdraw $10, so if I take out $10, my integer would be negative 10 because I'm taking it out of my bank account, so I don't have it there anymore. And what about if I had 0? Well, 0 in this case would mean that I did not change my account balance. Okay, so no change in account balance. Okay. Like I said, most things when you are asking what does 0 mean, 0 usually means no change, but some cases like in golf and with temperature, it will just be something other than that, like a temperature of 0 or par. Just a little bit of practice of finding the opposite. So the opposite of 1 is negative 1. The opposite of negative 5 is 5. The opposite of 7 is negative 7. The opposite of 0 is actually 0. 0 is its own opposite. If I said the opposite of the opposite, well, what's the opposite of the opposite of 0? Well, that would be 0. What about negative 5? The opposite is 5. The opposite of that would be back to negative 5. The opposite of 7. The opposite of 7 is negative 7. The opposite of negative 7 is 7. So you get back to the original number when you do the opposite of the opposite, because you go one way and then you go the other way. Okay, so the opposite of 1 is actually 1. So this part, if they say the opposite of the opposite, you actually end up with your original number. If you say just the opposite, you just change the sign unless it's 0, and then the opposite of 0 is 0. All right, I think that's just kind of a quick idea of the things that we are going over with this lesson. Feel free to ask questions and let me know if you need help. Thank you.